These are real people, many of whom were just sold to the Americans for the bounty they were offering when we first invaded Afghanistan. And some of them are poets. We have a couple poems here that were written in Guantanamo. Here's one from Juma al-Dorali. He says, he calls it death poem. Take my blood, take my death shroud and the remnants of my body. Take photographs of my corpse at the grave, lonely. Send them to the world, to the judges, and to the people of conscience. Send them to the principled people and the fair-minded, and let them bear the guilty burden before the world of this innocent soul, of this wasted, sinless soul, of this soul which has suffered at the hands of the protectors of peace. And then we have Osama Abu Kabir, who writes, "Is it true? Is it true that the grass grows again after the rain? Is it true that the flowers will rise up again in spring? Is it true that birds will migrate home again? Is it true that the salmon swim back upstream? It is true. This is true. These are all miracles. But is it true that one day we'll leave Guantanamo Bay? Is it true that one day we'll go back to our homes? I sail in my dreams. I'm dreaming of homes, to be with my children, each one part of me, to be with my wife and the ones that I love, to be with my parents, my world's tenderest hearts. I dream to be home, to be free from this cage. But do you hear me, O Judge? Do you hear me at all?
We hear you.
We are innocent here. We've committed no crime. Set me free. Set us free. If anywhere, still justice and compassion remain in this world."
And I'm a combat veteran in Vietnam. And one of the very first things I did in 1969 was raise my hand to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. That is an oath I did not take lightly. One of the major portions of that is there is no cruel and unusual punishment allowed in this nation. And what is happening in Guantanamo Bay, in our name, is torture, is cruel, is unusual punishment. People are taken with bags over their heads to unknown locations, scared half to death, not knowing whether they're going to live or die, not knowing whether they're going to be released. Out of the 86 people that should not be there, that have already been cleared some 5 years ago, they are still there. Could you imagine being in prison, in solitary confinement, for 5 years after you've been found innocent of any crime? We would be outraged as a nation that this happened. We're always shocked when we find out that an individual didn't commit a crime but served 20 years for something they didn't do. Now, because of these people happen to come from a different country and a different culture, we're not shocked. They're still human beings. And that is the name of the game. We are all human beings. If you do something that affects someone in a negative way, I can understand going to court, going to trial, being tried and judged by your peers. But for these people who have done nothing wrong, to have bags placed upon their heads, to be dragged around, handcuffed, leg cuffed, with their future completely and totally unknown. They were promised by a presidential candidate at the time that Guantanamo Bay will be closed. That promise has since been lost a long time ago. Do we need to stand up as a nation and say we will not allow torture, We will not allow cruelty. We will now not allow unusual punishment in our name.
We hold like 2.4 million people, and we do torture. We were talking about torture. We hold people in solitary confinement 24/7, able to get up and maybe walk for an hour, all right? So if we're talking about Guantanamo, all right, let's get real. We're talking about where a nation doesn't torture, all right? A nation doesn't torture. The fact is we actually do. We have systems that are set up to torture, and to be in solitary for that amount of time, 24/7, is a torture. And it's done deliberately to break people down, all right? So, yeah, we're the Committee for Peace and Human Rights. We're against Guantanamo. We want to shut it down. We're against the Gulag also. I certainly am. The Gulag does not just mean Guantanamo, all right? The Gulag also means the communication management units, the CMU prisons, where they don't let people even touch their loved ones, and where all the information is censored. So I'm going to pass along the microphone to my friends here. I want to say one more time, we are the Committee for Peace and Human Rights. We are the most annoying tourist attraction on the Freedom Trail, and we're probably the only place that you'll hear an unusual, unconventional bit of news. We do have a lot more to say, and we'll be back on the microphone. Thank you very much.
Calling for the closure of Guantanamo because some reports indicate that just about every so-called detainee, probably better referred to as prisoner, in Guantanamo, possibly 166, are on hunger strike and have been on hunger strike for some time. A month ago, Victoria Britton, war correspondent from the UK, was on a speaking tour. She spoke at Community Church of Boston. She spoke in Amherst. She was on Democracy Now! She's interviewed the family members, primarily wives of detainees in Guantanamo, and written a book about it, something called Lives in the Shadow or something to that effect. And in one of the stories she talked about one of the women's husband who at the time that he was writing to his wife had lost more than 100 pounds. He had been 250 pounds when he entered Guantanamo, and he was 150 at the time that he was writing, and probably much less now, maybe 90 pounds or something like that. And she described prisoners as being in very, very frail, very weak condition from so many years of being detained. You might remember when we initially got reports about prisoners in Guantanamo, they were talking about the conditions. They talked about the conditions being much like being in dog cages, and being in these tiny, tiny cages, and being exposed to the sun, and being told to stand out in the sun. Again, this is Guantanamo, Cuba, for many hours without any kind of covering or water, or so forth. And there would be times when the guards would throw them to the floor and take them in for interrogation, and there's plenty of evidence that basically people there were completely tortured.
Equal justice for some, unfortunately, and these people generally don't have access to a lot of money and to trial lawyers, so they need you, they need us to speak out for them, and they are so many. Please listen to what they're trying to say by going on their hunger strike. What they're saying is, if we don't go free, we don't eat, because we want you to know we're here. We are here. We are someone.